Good evening. I am towards the end of the session before the subsidiaries come in. We met many of you, we met about 3.5 years back in this very room, and we talked of what we believe is the roadmap ahead for Axis Bank and its liabilities franchise. And a couple of things that were articulated at that point in time was growth and the quality of growth that we want to look at. And growth has to be understood in terms of what is it that we want to do for the future, as well as fit it for purpose, which means there were regulatory enforcements which were happening of older circulars, as well as the commercial underlying growth that we want to do in terms of ensuring that the two speakers before me had enough money to kind of go out and do their business. And the principal pivots on which we went around trying to deliver liabilities for Axis Bank was based on that we will get into a granular mode. We will try and ensure that we are looking at the correct set of segments and correct profile of customers, try and ensure that the growth comes through with the relevant premium set of approaches that we want to do. And also look at the fact that at the end of the day, this growth and the profitability of that growth should be something that is anchored on sustainable franchise. We went about going through it in terms of ensuring that, and I'll cover some of them as we go along in the schedule ahead, in terms of the granular approach to components of the country, which is at a district by district level, of course broken down into where we are in terms of the branches in those districts. We also try and cover the pyramid of these segments and introduce some new products, ensured that we are at the end of the day moving towards right fit, and we'll talk of that a little later, of the kind of customers that we were looking for or the existing customers, how we are able to ensure that we are getting the sweating of the franchise done, and move towards a very institutionalized approach to delivering what we believe was the underlying strength of the liability franchise of Axis Bank for years together. And how do I ensure that this liability franchise which existed, this customer base which existed, how do I ensure that we institutionalized a customer engagement program and operating rhythm at the branches, a rigor and discipline in my outbound sales team or outbound calling teams and so on and so forth. And yes, are we happy with what we have achieved? Probably yes. Are we satisfied with what we have achieved? Not at all. There is a lot of headroom. There is obviously a journey which we have started and a journey that has taken us to some of the matrices that you see on the screen in front of you in terms of ensuring how my share in the premium book has gone up, how we are able to move at a district by district level, the market share that we are gaining, how we continue to maintain a fairly healthy LCR, which means that we are making it fit for purpose to ensure that the acceleration does not compromise the liability franchise in terms of adhering to certain regulatory compliances. And at the end of the day, you have heard Samir talk of it in much elaborate manner of trying to enable the entire frontline teams of how they are able to engage with customers on a very, very STP or a digital kind of platforms by giving them tools like BYOD to create that delight at that point in time, zero eyes, NFTR wherever possible, and ensure that we are in control of the cost of acquisition. This again captures some of the elements that we are trying to see in terms of, and again, the wins that we believe have taken us forward in our stated journey and the milestones that we set up for ourselves. And typically speaking, how do I balance between what I believe is the growth in the franchise as well as the composition of that franchise coming through clearly. So if you see, focus on retail deposits, focus on individual growth, focus on ensuring that there is an operating rhythm that goes through to contact and engage and create that relationship with customers. And of course, ensuring that there is a pivot towards creating more and more NTB franchise, which is coming through from the right side, right set of customers that we are looking for. And all of this comes through the fact that at the end of the day, there is a daily operating rhythm that has been institutionalized, which you continue to enforce. And you heard Piyush talk of that in terms of Siddhi, how we are trying to move the needle by not just getting the people in front of customers, but getting the people in front of customers with tools that ensure that that particular moment of engagement, that customer interaction really is sweated out to the maximum that is possible. So it is a win for the customer, it is a win for the person or the colleague who is in front of the customer, and therefore a win for the bank ultimately. If you take the here I would segue into the fact that we said that it is Balaji talked of that, it's a segmentation of one. Siddhi, what it does clearly is a segmentation of one for three components. One is the customer, because he's getting or she's getting a personalized nudge, and therefore there is an ability to understand that customer better. There is a personalization for the individual colleague, the staff who is in front of the customer. You heard Piyush talk of that. And ultimately, there is a customization and a segmentation of one for the supervisor, because the supervisor is able to engage with the staff specifically for what that staff is lacking in or doing well. So there are three elements of Siddhi which is coming through, and that was one very important critical piece where how do I ensure that in all of this, we are able to get the supervisory layer engaging on a day-to-day basis with intelligent inputs for the staff to become better the next day, right? So all of these are part of the engagement and customer-centric process that we went through. And what has it given us? It has given us the fact that, you know, as I move down into the detailed segmentation of our distribution network, how we have moved, Amitabh mentioned this, very clearly in terms of how district by district we are tracking, how we are ensuring that in each district, every branch is getting into understanding the market that they employ in. Bharat Bank, the catchment is a 25, 30, 40 kilometer radius. In a metro, the catchment is probably 2 kilometer radius, given the density of business potential and opportunities which are there. And therefore, between the two, how do I ensure that I'm able to go out deeper and deeper, right? Layer by layer, and peel the onion as we go in terms of delivering what we believe. Is this something that I am declaring a win on? No, it is a journey where we are trying to see that how do I go about wherever I have gone into a particular district, figured out where is it that I can do better. I'll try and see that what works for me. Similarly, we figured out that top 50 districts, which in any case for the industry, for any bank, has a very, very high meaningful impact. And therefore, in these top 50 districts, can I look at it even more granular and see if I am losing share in a particular district in top 50 in a quarter, then where is it that I am going wrong? Which branch has gone down? Where do I go and get that, deficit covered, and so on and so forth. So there are flavors at which the liability franchise is working, and therefore every district has a certain approach, how all the departments as one axis is coming through for that. Rajiv mentioned about the government business that we are in. In many of these districts, government business and its ancillary ecosystem becomes a very big piece in terms of delivering our growth in those districts. This is a quick snapshot of how we have moved in terms of delivering a repackaging of our approaches, both at the individual as well as the salary segment, and at the same time trying to see how do I go more and more deeper into the markets, try and ensure that there are deliverables which create that kind of hooks into these particular segments. And we are seeing some of those coming through in terms of the growth that we are presenting. This, again, as I said, fit for purpose. And how do I ensure that I am getting better and better balancing out of the franchise? What we realized was, as the LCR regime got kicked in and got more strongly enforced, it was important for all of us to realize what is our book, how do I ensure that this book is agile enough to start delivering the best out of the regulatory compliance and the regulatory field landscape that is available for us. And we started working on ensuring that retail and the small business elements are brought up. You heard Sangram talk about it in terms of how the CBG piece is coming through. You heard Sumit talk about the small business segment and how the asset. So these are asset-led liabilities which we are pushing through, which broadly would also cover Munish's point on the Bharat banking piece, where it's a loan-led liability approach that we are taking across those 2,000 odd branches. And this has also given us that kind of headroom, that play in terms of delivering more and more quality franchise by creating a change in the composition of the liability franchise. What has it done for us? It has ensured that as we go more and more specific to segments, as we go and understand our catchments, as we start playing the landscape in terms of branch-wise, district-wise approaches, it tells us that how, on a quarterly average basis, we are able to clearly create a more stable liability franchise. And the matrices on the screen will tell you that we are getting stronger and stronger in that play. Why we will win? I think there is a set of activities that are already at play in terms of ensuring that, and some of these were covered between Amitabh, Samir, and so on and so forth, in terms of ensuring which way we are moving. So, and I have a slide on each one of them. Basically, what we are trying to do is, we have a good franchise. How do I make it better? How do I sweat it better? How do I ensure that there are elements of what Balaji, Avinash, etc. covered in terms of getting into a segmentation of one? How do I ensure that we work, Munish and myself, in terms of creating the breadth of Bharat Bank, and I use my channel to deliver the depth that Munish is creating in terms of the breadth of partnerships, products, hooks, enablers which are there, in terms of ensuring that we start looking at specific segments, what we call as the silver segment, where we are not saying senior citizens. What we are saying is, I'll approach these people 55, 56 years onwards and participate in multiple things, including the retirement planning, the retirement corpus allocation, and so on and so forth. So this is something that we are getting into a big way. One axis, we talked of across all the people who presented, and I'll come to that slide as we go along, corporate salary. And of course, in terms of ensuring that how do we nurture and grow the city engagement. Here, if you see, there is, as I said, headroom for us to improve on the liability franchise. We have started moving the needle. We need to ensure that we continue to focus on some of these pivots that have helped us move forward, and whether it be new acquisitions, whether it be corporate salary engagements, whether it be the Bharat Bank and district level movement, whether we are looking at the retailing of our complete deposit franchise and balance it out with our bulk businesses of wholesale banking and so on and so forth. And ultimately, it's about ensuring that every person delivers every day with every customer interaction. And that's in nutshell in terms of how you would look at Siddhi. And those are the playbooks that we are getting in, those are the tools that we are getting in which will aid and abet in terms of ensuring that every customer interaction matters, right? Whatever be the set of people out there, including, VLEs in CSE or any such partnerships, BCs, etc. that we have, how do I enable that person who goes out into the market for a customer engagement of any variety, in any catchment, in any geography, across the country, whether Bharat or India, how do I enable, aid and abet that colleague of mine or the outsourced staff of Axis Bank to be able to represent the bank in terms of creating the hooks for a liability engagement to start, either directly, if he is a full-time employee, or pass it on along an STP mode to ensure that the bank engages with that customer. This, I won't spend too much time. Lot has been talked about this. But the whole idea here is to ensure that I am in constant conversation with my colleague who's out there. It's not an isolated work in a cocoon which is done, in head office or in some server farm which kind of picks out. I keep learning from the input and the feedback which my frontline staff also give. And that's very important, because that will then take care of the fact that intuitively as well as iteratively, I am able to do all that which you see on the slide in front of you. There was a question for Balaji earlier as to how the needle has moved and what are the initial reads. The matrices up there will tell you that, he kind of amplified that point. Bharat Bank, I won't take time. Munish has spent already. We are very excited about this because every time Munish travels, I travel, and I spent about 3 months through July, August, September out in tier 2, tier 3 markets. And it was absolutely wonderful meeting all these VLEs. They are hungry for business. They are looking for enablers. They are looking for tools. They are looking for products. And as Munish mentioned that, if you just take any of these cohorts of VLEs, depending on the geography they are in, you will find that they have a lot of excitement and energy to deliver us business. You've seen the movement that we saw in the number of VLEs that we had signed up over the last 2 years. It has virtually moved from about 10,000-15,000 to about 55,000 now. So that's the kind of growth through the pandemic that we have been able to deliver. And I just forgot to mention that one of the slides in the earlier ones, you saw that, the bank had been awarded through the pandemic years, the most sensitive bank and the best recommended bank in retail and so on and so. Matter of great pride for us by Asian Banker, because really through those 2 years, the frontline staff, whether it be collections, operations, assets, branch, sales, any of these people, they were there all through those 2 years, right? They were out on the field every day. Got some lathi charge also done during those first, phase. But these guys really made the bank proud in terms of ensuring that they are moving and during those years is when all these sign-ups of VLEs, setting them up and getting them to do what they are delivering for us today. This was what I was talking of, the silver segment. What we are trying to do is how do I ensure that we participate in their journey, let us say 55 onwards, right? And not just go to a bland, 60, 65-year-old senior citizen and book a TD for you and so on and so forth. This is something which we want to participate as a life cycle phase for the customers, and it fits in very appropriately with what we believe is the granular and premium approach that we want to do. This is the synergies of One Axis. It's been talked about by everyone. With Sumit, we are ensuring that there are accountabilities on the kind of business that they deliver on liabilities. With Ganesh, who looks after coverage, we are having complete engagement on corporate salary and all those opportunities, including Forex and so on and so forth. We are working with Sanjeev on the merchant side. You heard the project called Kanban that Amitabh talked of early in the morning. and so on and so forth. So across each of these cohorts and segments of verticals of business in the bank, everybody carries accountabilities on what they will bring to the party in terms of the liability franchise. This, a quick one on the salary, a lot of stuff written here, but what I would like to highlight here is that we had a good franchise. We are now trying to make it into a more agile one, right? Which means getting everyone in the team to start talking about salary. You heard Sangram talk of it, you heard Rajiv mention it, you heard Vivek Gupta talk of it, you heard Sumit and Sanjeev talk of it, you heard Balaji and Avinash talk of it, and of course, it's a key factor of what we are doing on the Siddhi franchise. We are ensuring that we continue to start looking at product penetration. We are continuing to look at how we are reforming, reviewing, and refreshing the client propositions and how it is relevant or salient to the kind of corporates that we are engaging with. Of course, client acquisition, we have ramped up the engine in a big way. Those matrices tell you about that. And then how do I bring the entire analytics piece in getting to understand these customers better and better? The advantage of salary is it's cohort-based, and therefore it becomes that much more powerful if you get it right on the analytics piece. Finally, on the Citibank, I think much has been spoken and read about it, but clearly what it does, gives us advantage of more than 200 basis points on the CASA ratio. It gives us the deposit portfolio. I am very happy about and excited about the salary portfolio that they have. More than 1,600 corporates, more than 1 million customers, and that is something which really excites me, because that again completely aligns and dovetails with our approach on granular and premium business and the kind of product penetration and sweating the franchise that we can talk of. And of course, the fact that we get fantastic people from that franchise is the added benefit that we are getting. We are very, very kicked about that. So with that, I'll say thank you.